Chair recognizes the gentleman from Vermont, Mr. Welch, for 5 minutes for his questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Landberg, in September, Christine Abizaid, the director of the National Counterterrorism Center, told the Homeland Security Committee that the current worldwide terrorist threat is, quote, less acute to the homeland, but which continues to become more ideologically diffuse and geographically diverse. My question is, even if foreign terrorist threats to the U.S. homeland have diminished, and you can comment on whether you agree with that progress, she states, they still pose a threat to our national security interests. Is that right? And can you explain why?
Yes, sir. Thank you. I think absolutely. We're although it's evolving, we've also evolved our approach. The Biden-Harris administration, as my DoD colleague said, is actually taking a whole-of-government approach to dealing with these threats. While we have had great success over the last 20 years in securing the homeland and creating a network of alliances that include information sharing and vetting and screening to prevent terrorist travel, and we've really increased the security of our country, the threats continue to multiply, as we've noted in many places, specifically sub-Saharan Africa, but that's not the only location. So to deal with this, we are evolving from what has maybe been a little bit military-heavy counterterrorism approach over the last 20 years to a more balanced approach, as we also start to deal with a broader range of threats that goes way beyond counterterrorism to cyber threats, to strategic nation-state competition. And by dealing with this as a whole of government, our focus is going to be more on building the partner capabilities and also leveraging these international relationships that I've been talking about, like, for example, the De-ISIS Coalition.
Ms. Harris, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
I think what I would, with regards to Director Abizaid's remarks, I do think we see the threat from foreign terrorist organizations abroad as at its lowest point since 9/11. But what we see is a committed group of terrorist organizations that want to radicalize and inspire. And that is a different kind of threat for us. It presents a different challenge when you think about trying to counter that. I think, as my Department of State colleague said, the tools that you use there are things like, you know, engaging with social media companies on use of the internet and working to try to counter messaging from, you know, the Global Engagement Center and other U.S. government entities.
Thank you. Mr. Landberg, are you able to comment in a public setting to what extent do Al-Qaeda and ISIS, the core, maintain operational control over any of their respective branches and affiliates?
I think maybe better to discuss details in a follow-on session, but there is connectivity, and I think it's publicly acknowledged between the ISIS affiliates and networks and leadership.
Well, let me ask you this. You know, the Africa's homegrown extremist groups have objectives and disproportionately target regional governments and civilians. Is that your view as to the focus of their main attention? Not that they don't affiliate with other terrorist groups that may have global aspirations. Can you comment on that, Mr. Landberg?
So to make sure I understand, so there are ISIS and Al-Qaeda affiliates spreading throughout the world and interacting with different elements in many of the spaces that they're moving into. And as we mentioned before, they take advantage of local grievances, ungoverned spaces, and often in these spaces there's already a criminal and terrorist activity that these more organized affiliates are able to then take and focus to further their you know, really the ISIS and Al-Qaeda objectives in those regions.
Okay. Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The chair now recognizes the full committee chair,